It started with a car key. Not a metaphor. A literal car key on the counter that shouldn't have been there. Not ours. It was silver, sleek, and had a keychain from some cigar bar in Charleston. We live in Ohio. No one in our circle smokes cigars and no one's been to Charleston except her, apparently. She told me she was visiting her cousin 2 weekends ago. That was the lie that seeded the collapse, and it took me another 11 days to spot it. I didn't say anything about the key at first. Just picked it up, turned it in my hand, then left it where I found it. It wasn't time yet. Our house isn't huge, but it's got space. Space enough for secrets. I started noticing the drawers in the bathroom getting rearranged. The moisturizer she never liked back in the cabinet. Her heels lined up like she suddenly cared about the order again. And one night I saw a tiny scratch on her shoulder she didn't even realize she had. She told me she banged it on a cabinet door. Thing is, we don't have cabinets at that height. But still, I waited. Until last Thursday. We were at a friend's barbecue, and that's when I saw her face twist into something I hadn't seen in years. Not the laugh, not the way she touched her hair. The look. The one she used to give me before we had bills and broken dishwashers and kids throwing tantrums. That secret, burning glance women save for a man they've chosen. And she gave it to someone else. A man I'd never seen before. Tall, confident, like he knew something I didn't. And here's where it really cracked open. I watched him walk past me, brush shoulders with her so lightly you'd miss it if you blinked. But she blinked. Twice. And her hand grazed his back like it had muscle memory. When we got home, I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I told her I was going to bed early and asked if she could put the kids to sleep. She agreed without looking at me. Her phone buzzed. I saw her smile. Not just a casual smile, an inhale smile. Like she was breathing in another world. I waited until she passed out beside me. Face buried in the pillow, one leg kicked out like always. Then I took her phone. I didn't have the password, but I didn't need it. She'd been lazy. Too comfortable. I opened the gallery first. There it was. A live photo from Charleston. She thought she'd deleted it, but iCloud's funny like that. She was in a bar. Not with her cousin. Not in daylight. Dim light. A man's hand across her lower back as she leaned in close. The live photo played for 3 seconds, and in those 3 seconds I saw her whisper something into his ear and smile with her eyes shut. It made my stomach ice over. And the worst part? I recognized the keychain hanging from his belt. It matched the one on my kitchen counter. I put her phone back without deleting a thing. She'd remember soon enough. What I did next wasn't revenge. It was preparation. I pulled out an old journal she once gave me for our 5th anniversary. It was still blank. I started writing down every detail, every timestamp, every shift in her behavior. Not for court. Not for friends. For me. To understand where I missed it. When she stopped being mine. The next morning I made her coffee like nothing happened. Kissed her forehead. Told her to drive safe. She didn't see me watching from my car 3 blocks away as she pulled into that same man's apartment complex at 9:16 a.m. on a workday. She lied. Again. And that was the last morning she got to lie freely. She came home humming. That was the first red flag. No one hums after traffic on I-71. No one hums when they're exhausted from back-to-back meetings at a job she's been dragging her feet on for the last 3 months. But there she was, coat half off, heels still on, like she didn't even feel the weight of her own deception anymore. She tossed her purse on the chair, opened the fridge, and said, "We out a Chardonnay," like that was the worst thing that happened to her all day. I watched her for a moment. Just watched. The way she moved. Carefree. Unbothered. Like we were living in separate timelines and hers had no space for guilt. She wasn't playing it cool. She'd already convinced herself I was too blind to ever know. She didn't realize I was already inside her new timeline. Quietly, carefully, rearranging the pieces. "Yeah," I said, pouring myself a glass of water I didn't need. "You drank the last bottle Tuesday, remember?" She paused for half a beat. Just a twitch at the corner of her mouth. Tuesday was the night she said she worked late. There was no wine. She never came home until 11:50 p.m. I let the silence wrap around us until she nodded absently and walked off toward the bedroom, muttering something about a shower. I followed. Not to spy, not to catch, just to see. To watch her try to peel herself clean. She left the bathroom door cracked open. I heard her singing under the water, low and tuneless, like she didn't care who was listening. Like this house was a hotel, and I was just a doorman with a keycard to the wrong suite. I went back to her purse. It's the little things that betray us, not the big ones. The parking stub from downtown, the same garage next to the apartment I'd followed her to. Dated. Timed. 9:24 a.m. She didn't even try to hide it. Didn't even crumple it. I took it. Placed it inside the journal. Logged it with a live photo. The plan wasn't to blow everything up yet. Not yet. That's what they expect. Rage, confrontation, shouting. They're ready for that. They've rehearsed it in the mirror. But I wasn't going to let her give me the performance she practiced. So I waited. Let her finish her shower. Let her crawl into bed next to me and pull the blanket up with the same hand that gripped another man's shirt that morning. She fell asleep within minutes. No hesitation. No shift in breath. Nothing. I laid awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how long I'd been sleeping next to someone so skilled at pretending. And then, just before sleep found me, I made the first real move. I sent her a message from an anonymous number. Just one line. How was Charleston? I watched her phone light up on the nightstand. She stirred, reached out, looked at the screen, then sat up. Not all the way, just a subtle jerk, like her spine had been hooked by a memory she didn't expect. She got out of bed quietly and left the room. I didn't follow, because the moment she started whispering into the phone downstairs, panic in her voice, I knew I had her. Tomorrow was her birthday. She had no idea the kind of gift I was preparing. Wait until you hear what happened at the dinner table. Her birthday was never low-key. She loved the attention. The curated photos, the lavish surprises, she planned herself but let others take credit for. And this year, she expected it all to be the same. Maybe more. She probably thought she deserved it, some twisted reward for living her secret life so flawlessly. She didn't know I'd flipped the script. Morning came. I made her breakfast. Not just the usual toast and coffee, I went all out. French toast with berries, her favorite almond milk latte, even played that playlist she loved from our first trip to Maine. She was radiant, laughing, touching my shoulder as she leaned across the table. I let her believe the illusion was intact. I fed it. I made it dance. She didn't see the journal sitting in my car, under the seat, fat with receipts and dates and the silent confessions of a woman who thought no one was watching. Midday, I handed her a card. Inside was a gift certificate to a spa across town. She gasped like a teenager and kissed me, soft, mechanical, but satisfied. I booked your massage for 2 o'clock, I told her. She smiled. You're the best. She left at 1:20. Waved from the car. Said she'd be back by 4. I waited 10 minutes before I drove. Not to the spa. I'd called them earlier. There was no appointment. There was no booking. There never was. I headed straight to the apartment complex. The same place she went last Thursday. Same spot. Same time. I parked across the street, just behind a van with tinted windows. Watched her car pull in. She didn't hesitate. Walked right up to building 4. Punched the door code in like she owned the place. And she smiled. That's what broke me, seeing her smile like that. Natural. Free. The kind of smile she used to save for family trips and lazy Sunday mornings in bed. Not anymore. She vanished into the building. I waited. 15 minutes passed. My pulse beat in my ears. My palms itched. But I didn't move. Then my phone buzzed. A text. From her. Traffic's worse than I thought, running late. Don't wait on me for dinner. I stared at the message. The bold, blank-faced lie in the middle of it. And that's when I knew. She wasn't coming back as the same woman. She couldn't. Because I wasn't the same man anymore. I drove home. Set the table. Poured wine. Let the food go cold. When she finally walked in just after 5, she was glowing. Hair tousled in a way that wasn't the wind. Lipstick smudged like she'd been rushed. She tried to hide it, but her eyes flicked to the kitchen, the untouched dinner, and something flickered behind her lashes. Guilt? No, just calculation. Sorry, she said. I got caught up at the spa. You wouldn't believe the traffic. I cut her off gently, smiled. No worries. Did they fix your shoulder? That scratch from last week. Her eyes twitched. She nodded, slow. Yeah, it's better now. I stood up, walked around the table, looked her in the eye. You're sure? She hesitated. Why? I leaned in, close enough for her to see the change in me, the calm before the eruption. Because you were never at the spa. She blinked. And in that blink, the whole game reset. She laughed at first. A nervous chuckle. What are you talking about? You were at Building 4. Same place as last Thursday. You wore the same perfume. I could smell it from the parking lot. The smile dropped. You followed me? Her voice rose, sharp, accusing me like I was the one betraying something sacred. You lied to me. Again. My voice was flat. And you've been lying. I've got everything: texts, photos, timestamps, even your little souvenir from Charleston. Her expression shattered for a second, but she rebuilt it fast. She wasn't going down easy. You're insane, she hissed. You're obsessed. This is controlling, paranoid. Stop, I said. The silence that followed was thicker than her lies. And then she snapped. You don't give me what I need anymore. You're boring, Jake. I've been keeping this house running while you rot behind your routine like a ghost. There it was. The truth. Not carefully folded into an excuse, but flung out like venom. I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just stared at her, seeing her for the first time without the veil. You turned your back on your family, I said, steady. For him. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. But I promise you, you will regret every second of that betrayal. And I meant it. Because what I had planned next wasn't anger. It wasn't petty. It was surgical. She didn't speak at first. She just stood there, mouth slightly open, like she couldn't figure out what role to play. The victim? The misunderstood wife? The exhausted mother? She'd cycled through them all before. None were landing now. Not after what I said. Not after the silence I held between us like a knife. I don't know what you think you have, she finally muttered, eyes darting like cornered prey. But it's not what you think. It's complicated. That line, it's complicated. That's what people say when they're caught with both hands in the fire and still want you to believe it's snowing outside. I sat down at the table, motioned toward the untouched wine glass across from me. Sit, I said. I made your favorite. Fig-glazed salmon. She didn't move. I'm not hungry. I didn't ask if you were hungry. She sat, slowly. Her hands clenched around the napkin like she was trying to squeeze a version of the story out of it. I want to explain, she said. No, I interrupted. You want to rewrite. But I've read the original. She opened her mouth. But I didn't stop. You told your mom you were in Charleston with Kelly. But Kelly called here on Monday looking for you because she left her charger in your bag. Except you weren't home. You were out. Probably at Building 4. Her face drained. You've used the kids' dentist appointments as cover. You used work as a cover. You used me as cover. So now you're going to sit here and listen. I pulled out the journal. Dropped it onto the table. She stared at it like it was a bomb. Every date. Every time you came home with his cologne still on your scarf. Every meeting that ended 2 hours too late. I've got it all. She reached for it. I slid it away. You don't get to touch the truth. I never meant for this to happen, she said, voice shaking now, cracking under its own weight. It started with nothing. I didn't go looking for it. No, I agreed. But you didn't say no to it either. She stood abruptly. I need air. I didn't stop her. Let her walk to the door, fling it open like the wind would wash away the shame. She didn't step outside. Just stood there, breathing like she'd run 10 miles. I gave you years, I said. I gave you loyalty, trust, the kind of patience people don't talk about because it's too quiet to post about. And you used it as a backdrop to your affair. She didn't turn around. Just whispered, I felt like I was dying here. And there it was. Her favorite justification. Her worn-out excuse. I built this life with you, I said. And you buried it under hotel receipts and parking passes. She turned then. Her face wasn't angry anymore. It was worse. It was cold. I'm not sorry for wanting more. Not sorry. 3 words. Enough to turn a crack into a canyon. I nodded, walked over to the drawer, pulled out a manila envelope. Inside? Copies of everything. Organized. Chronological. Watermarked. You can take this, I said. You're going to need it. Her eyes flicked to it, confused. For what? For the lawyer. The blood drained from her face. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't a confrontation. It was consequence. I've already filed, I told her. You'll get the official papers this week. You won't touch the house. You won't touch the kids until mediation. And until then, you'll stay at your sister's. She stepped forward, voice rising. You're throwing this away? No, I said. You threw it away. I'm just taking out the trash. She went silent. I picked up my wine glass. Took a sip. Tomorrow morning, I'll help pack your things. And after that, you and I are done pretending. She didn't scream, didn't cry. She just turned around and walked upstairs. Stiff, hollow, like her legs belonged to someone else. And in that stillness, I felt the first drop of calm. Not revenge. Control. The next morning would be the start of the shift. She didn't sleep that night. I heard her pacing. The boards creaked upstairs from 1 a.m. until dawn. Maybe she thought I'd change my mind, that I'd wake up softened by nostalgia or fear of the kids asking questions. She underestimated how cold clarity can be once it settles in. When I came downstairs at 7 o'clock, she was already in the kitchen, dressed, made up, like she thought this was just another argument we'd file away and forget by Tuesday. You're really doing this? She said. No good morning, no smile. I poured coffee. Already done. She followed me to the dining table. What about the kids? What about them? Her voice cracked then, the first honest fracture. You're going to destroy their home. I looked at her for a long, heavy second. No, you already did that. I'm just not letting them live in the wreckage. She opened her mouth, probably to go full performance mode, but I stood up and handed her the list I wrote the night before. A clean, itemized breakdown of everything she needed to pack today. Essentials only. No chaos. No drama. You have until noon, I said. I've arranged for a rideshare to your sister's. The kids are at your mom's for the weekend. She blinked. You sent them away? I didn't want them here when you started bargaining. She stepped closer, her face shifting again. This time softer. Weaponized empathy. I made a mistake. I actually laughed. Sharp. Dry. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. You planned this. Lied. Over and over. That's not a mistake. That's a lifestyle. Her lips quivered, and for a second I thought she might finally cry. But no. Not her. Instead, she dropped the mask completely and spat out, You don't get to act like some moral king, Jake. You were checked out for years. You're so boring it's like living with wallpaper. I stepped in close, calm as ever. Then why didn't you just leave? She had no answer. Just that frozen, hateful silence of someone who realizes they gambled everything and lost the house. I walked away. 30 minutes later, she started packing. Loudly. Aggressively. As if throwing her clothes into a duffel bag could undo what she'd done. She tried texting someone in the hallway. I caught a glimpse of the name Aiden. So that was him. Of course it was a name like that. She didn't know I'd already messaged Aiden from her phone the night before. Sent him a polite little message, he knows. Don't contact me again. It's over. I watched her reread it later. Her brows furrowed, her fingers hovering like maybe, just maybe, she realized she was no longer in control of the board. At 11:56, the car arrived. She stood by the door with her bags and one last card to play. I still love you, Jake, she said, barely above a whisper. I tilted my head. No. You loved what I gave you. And when it wasn't enough to distract you from yourself, you found someone else to feed on. She looked away. Goodbye, I said. Don't call unless it's about the kids. And I closed the door. She didn't knock again. Not that day. But 3 days later? She came back. And this time she wasn't alone. Tuesday, 4:43 p.m. I was in the middle of putting Mason's new bike together in the garage when I heard the car door slam. Not hers. Too heavy. More deliberate. A second later came her voice, louder than it had any right to be on a suburban street. That kind of manufactured confidence meant only one thing: she didn't come alone. I stepped out, wiped my hands on a rag, and there she was, standing at the edge of the driveway with a man next to her. No, not him. Not Aiden. This was someone else entirely. Older. Sharper. Wearing a suit like he thought it gave him authority over my life. This is Mark, she announced, folding her arms. My lawyer. I almost smiled. She really thought this would scare me. Mark extended his hand. I didn't take it. We'd like to discuss a few adjustments regarding the living situation, he said, clearly expecting I'd invite them in. I leaned against the doorway. There's nothing to discuss until mediation. She has a right to access her home, he pushed. She had a right, I corrected. Now she has an arrangement, which she agreed to. And if she wants to change that, she can do it the proper way. She stepped forward, face twisted into that brittle smirk she uses when she thinks she's outsmarted someone. I want to come back, she said. For the kids. I raised an eyebrow. For them. Yes, she insisted, voice rising like she thought volume meant virtue. They need both of us. This is their house too. No, I said. This is my house. And right now, they're with people who don't lie to them. Her lawyer stepped in again, but I cut him off. You're not walking into my house with a man I've never met, pretending this is about the children. This is about control. It always has been. She scoffed. You think you're some righteous hero? You emotionally abandoned this family years ago. And you physically abandoned it with someone else's belt around your neck, I said, quiet, direct, and without blinking. Her face drained. The lawyer flinched. She looked like she wanted to lunge at me. Instead, she turned to Mark. Say something. He adjusted his tie, clearly rattled. We'll be in touch. You do that, I said, stepping back into the garage. And next time? Leave the theatrics at home. They left without another word. I watched their car fade down the street and I could feel it in my chest, the tide turning. She brought her reinforcements. She brought her game face. And all it took was a little truth to unravel it right there on my front lawn. But that wasn't the end of her performance. That night, a friend of mine, Laura from the PDA, sent me screenshots. A new post was floating around Facebook. A carefully worded status from her, claiming she was being locked out of her children's lives by a vindictive ex-husband and that she was praying for healing during this difficult separation. The comments were loaded with sympathy. Clapping emojis. Heart emojis. Stay strong, girl, nonsense from women who'd never once seen her with the kids at the park. She was rewriting the story again. But this time she didn't realize I'd already written the ending. Because the next morning, the judge read my affidavit before hers. And he saw everything. The courtroom was cold. Sterile. The kind of place where every sound echoes, even the lies. She wore white. Of course she did. And not just white, pressed, polished, like a bridal aftershock. Like she wanted the judge to see a grieving mother, not the woman who snuck out of her kids' lives at 9:16 a.m. in exchange for an apartment key and a backhanded compliment. I wore black. Not to be dramatic. Just because I didn't need to pretend. Her lawyer arrived first. Mark. Still smug. Still overconfident. She followed him in, doing that walk she does when she wants to look like a victim, chin up, pace slow, eyes full of fabricated sorrow. She didn't look at me. Good. I wasn't looking at her either. I was looking at the judge. A woman. Early 60s. Sharp eyes that had seen thousands of people lie in that room. She watched us the way a hawk watches something that doesn't know it's bleeding yet. We both submitted affidavits. Mine was thick. Detailed. Hers was fluff. Generalized. Emotional manipulation dressed as narrative. She said I'd shut her out, claimed I was cold and reactive, said she was doing what she could to keep things peaceful for the children. She didn't know what I'd attached to mine. I included the journal. Not the original. A copy. But the full thing. Scanned. Highlighted. Each entry bookmarked and timestamped. Photos. Text screenshots. The message from Aiden. The parking ticket. The bar receipt from Charleston with her signature on it next to a double order of whiskey sours. And that keychain? Yeah. That was stapled to the back of the physical copy I submitted. Her lawyer didn't even know what hit them until the judge said, I've reviewed the documentation submitted by Mr. Jameson and I'd like to begin with a few questions. She froze. Just for a second. But I saw it. She tried to stay calm, but the judge was surgical. Miss Townsend, the judge said, were you in Charleston on March 17th? She nodded. Yes, Your Honor. And were you there with your cousin Kelly? She blinked. Yes. Are you aware that Kelly gave a sworn statement indicating she had not seen or spoken to you that entire month? Boom. Her jaw twitched. I misunderstood the date, Your Honor. Do you often forget entire weekends? Mark tried to interject, but the judge shut it down. This is not theater, counselor. Then she pulled out the photo. The one from the live image. The man's hand on her back. Her smiling into his ear. This was taken March 18th, the judge said. That's not your cousin. She stammered. Something about an old friend, a misunderstanding, a non-romantic connection. The judge raised her hand. Please don't insult this court. Then came the final blow. I find Mr. Jameson to be the more credible parent at this time. Primary custody will remain with him. Miss Townsend, visitation will be supervised until further evaluation. She flinched like she'd been slapped. And me? I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just sat still, hands folded, and looked at the woman across from me who tried to burn down a home and got caught holding the match. We exited without a word. Outside, she caught up to me. You think you won? I turned to her. No. I think you lost. And you did it all by yourself. She stared, shaking. You don't know what this feels like, she hissed. Yes, I said. I do. It feels like watching someone you trusted tear your life in half, then blame you for the mess. She started crying. Right there in the hallway. But it wasn't for the kids. It wasn't regret. It was exposure. She finally realized she couldn't edit this ending. But she wasn't done. Not yet. She wasn't built to lose quietly. It's not in her blood. Her whole persona is scaffolding made of applause, admiration, and fake intimacy. So after the judge handed her that verdict, supervised visitation, sole custody with me, she did what people like her always do. She pivoted to the audience. 3 days after court, she posted a video. A soft-lit, carefully rehearsed monologue from the driver's seat of her car. No makeup, hoodie on, shaky breath like she just finished crying. She knew exactly what she was doing. She looked into the camera and said, This week has been the hardest of my life. I've lost access to my children. I made mistakes, but I'm being punished in ways that don't match the truth. I just want to be a mom again. 3 minutes and 42 seconds of manipulated pain. She never said my name, never mentioned the affair, never even hinted at the decisions that led to this moment. She painted herself as a woman crushed by an unfair man in an unfair world. The comments were immediate. Hundreds of people who didn't know a thing about our marriage or her betrayal lined up to hand her sympathy like candy. You're so brave for speaking up. This system always favors the man. Praying for your babies to be back in your arms soon. It was strategic, calculated, and I almost didn't respond. Almost. But then Ellie's preschool teacher pulled me aside the next day and said, I didn't realize your wife was going through something so serious. Is everything okay at home? That was the trigger. She wasn't content to rot our marriage from the inside. Now she was poisoning the outside, too. The school, the neighbors, the people who might one day look at my children and think their father did something wrong. So I responded. Not online, not through a lawyer. I did something better. I invited the right people over for dinner. Her sister, her cousin, 2 mutual friends from our neighborhood who had started to grow suspicious. Before dinner, I laid it all out. The journal, the receipts, the calendar of lies. I let them read it, let them piece together how she lied to all of us. Her sister was silent, pale. Her cousin cried. The neighbors? Angry, not at me, at her. After they left, the silence around me changed. The group chats dried up for her. The Facebook sympathies faded. The silence wasn't absence. It was awareness. That's what scared her most. Because 3 days later, she called me. Why are you turning people against me? I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just said they saw the truth. You just don't like the way it looks in the light. She breathed hard into the phone like she was searching for a counterlay, a new lie to slip into. But there was nowhere left to hide. You've ruined everything, she whispered. No, I replied. You ruined it. I just stopped cleaning up after you. She hung up. But the damage was done. The audience she was performing for had vanished. It was a Saturday. Gray sky. The kind of day that sits heavy on your shoulders. Mason had a soccer game that morning. Ellie had spilled juice on her dress and giggled like nothing else in the world mattered. And for a few hours everything felt simple again. Grounded. Like our little trio was stabilizing. Then she showed up. No warning. No call. Just pulled into the driveway like she still had keys to a life she'd already burned down. She wasn't dressed like herself. No polished exterior. No camera-ready smile. Just jeans, a wrinkled hoodie, and a tired expression that didn't look rehearsed for the first time in weeks. I opened the door and stepped outside. You're not supposed to come here without notice. She didn't argue. Didn't cry. She just stood there with something in her hand. It was a check. I sold the Charleston condo, she said. I want you to have this. I didn't move. Didn't even look at the number. She held it out like it was a peace treaty, but it felt more like a bribe. For what? I asked. I want unsupervised time with the kids. Just weekends, maybe? You could keep the weekdays. I won't fight custody. I just want to be their mom again. I let the silence hang. She looked down at the check, then back at me. This isn't manipulation. I'm trying. I'm cleaning things up. Cleaning things up, I repeated. With a check. It's all I have left to offer. That's when it hit me. This wasn't strategy. This was surrender. But it was still rooted in the same idea she'd always clung to, that everything had a price. That mistakes could be papered over with money, or charm, or good lighting. I didn't take the check. Instead, I pulled something from my pocket, a folded sheet of paper. I handed it to her. What's this? Ellie's drawing. She made it yesterday. She opened it. A stick figure drawing of the three of us, me, Mason, Ellie. A house, a son, a dog we don't even have yet. She wasn't in the picture. I watched her lips tremble. She didn't do that to hurt you, I said quietly. She just drew what feels real to her. She folded the paper slowly, her hands shaking. I know I deserve it, she said. But it doesn't make it easier. No, I said. But it makes it honest. And then, I did what I didn't plan to do. I told her she could have one unsupervised Saturday. Just one. A test. Nothing legal. Just a chance. Not for her. For them. Because at the end of this mess, they deserve to see what she did with grace, not with pressure. She cried then. Real tears. No camera in sight. And I watched her walk back to her car, not with victory, not with guilt. With humility. But even then I knew. This wasn't the end. There was still one truth she hadn't faced yet. The Saturday I let her have the kids was quiet. I packed a small bag for each of them, labeled, timed, detailed. Snacks. Extra clothes. Ellie's stuffed rabbit. Mason's inhaler. She arrived on time, looking like someone who hadn't exhaled in weeks. She didn't say much. Didn't try to hug me. Didn't make promises. Just took the kids with a quiet thank you like she knew this was borrowed time. I didn't hover. Didn't track her phone or grill the kids when they came home. I waited. When they returned hours later, I could tell right away they were fine. No tears. No tension. No stories that hinted at chaos or guilt dressed as fun. They'd gone to a petting zoo. Had lunch. Watched a movie. Simple. But they didn't mention her much. That's what hit hardest. I could see it in Mason's eyes. He wanted it to be normal. But he didn't know how to talk about her without tripping over something invisible. And Ellie, she just wanted to show me the drawing she made of the baby goat. She drew the goat next to me. Again, their mom wasn't in the picture. I didn't say anything about it. I just tucked it into the fridge next to the rest. 3 days later, she sent me a message. No demands. No fights. Just this. Thank you for trusting me. I don't deserve it. And she was right. She didn't. But it wasn't about what she deserved anymore. It was about what I deserved. And what the kids deserved. Peace. Stability. The kind of future that doesn't feel like a courtroom or a curated Instagram performance. So that night, I did something final. I wrote her a letter. Not a rant. Not a speech. Just the last page she never expected. I told her, you lied and you broke more than promises. You broke the foundation under our lives and expected me to keep painting the walls. But I didn't fight back to punish you. I fought back to protect what you tried to walk away from, your own children's sense of safety. You didn't just turn your back on me. You turned your back on our family for him, but I made sure you regretted every second of that betrayal. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not here to prove a point. I just want you to understand that forgiveness isn't always a reunion. Sometimes it's just letting go of the weight and watching you carry it instead. I didn't send it. I folded it and slid it into the back of the journal, the one with her timeline in it. Then I put the journal in a box, taped it shut, labeled it, "This is where the story ends." Because it did. Not with shouting. Not with fireworks. With silence. The kind of silence that comes when the storm's gone and the air finally smells clean again. And that was it. She faded from the center of our lives. A call every other weekend. A visit when it fit the court schedule. No more performance. No more spotlights. Just a woman learning, too late, that attention isn't love. And me? I got my life back. But more importantly, I kept it from being rewritten by someone who never deserved the pen.